if you ever see me asking for a Google review in the diamond shop, I'm like a little kid in a candy store. I love it. It's great. I mean, who doesn't like to hear, hey, you did an amazing job. I loved how you did this, this, and that. Hey, it was so amazing. I can't wait, and all that sort of stuff. So for me, it's like I love reading these kind of virtual pats on the back that you get in the form of a Google review.
Hello, I'm your host, Evelyn Clark, and this is the 6-Star Business Podcast, where we have conversations with amazing, incredible people all about what it takes to be 6-star, going beyond the status quo, doing things differently, and how they bring purpose, love, and impact into their businesses every day. I just love this conversation with Karl Schwantes. He's the master of reputation. That's what I'd like to call him. He's got a superpower as well, and he tells us about that in this chat. And he's the man of the 5-star reviews. You know, he's all about getting the review, the customer experience, and boy, does he know how to deliver a customer experience. And he talks about that in his second generation diamond jewellery store that he's been running for more than a couple of decades, and what he's done in that store, and then, of course, what he's learned from this. Reputation is so important, and being able to walk the talk, having the right customer journey, which I know all about, and also what it means to get a 5-star review. There's a lot for all of us in this conversation. I know you're going to enjoy this with Karl Schwantes. Welcome. Here we are. It is another beautiful Friday morning on the east coast of Australia. We have an Australian episode. We've got Corey, who's in Australia at the moment, Karl, who's a little bit up the road from me on the East Coast, and myself. So welcome, Karl. It's so good to have you here on the podcast.
Good morning. Glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Well, let's get started. Well, of course, Corey, I must say, you're normally in Germany, but you're here in Australia. How's it going so far?
Wonderful. Always happy to be back, now closer than ever, and always excited to listen to the new guests, in particular to Karl, who has German roots. So let's kick it off.
Yeah, if you guys start sort of like slipping into German partway through the podcast, I might have to just like intervene, okay, for our listeners' benefit. But there's a prior warning for the listeners right now. Yes, Karl has got some German roots, and Corey being German. These things sometimes happen. Okay. All right, Karl, I'm excited about this. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you better. Let's start with, where are you in the world for our listeners' benefit?
I'm in Brisbane, Australia, which for those of you who don't know, Brisbane's the one at the top where it's nice and warm and the weather's perfect compared to Sydney, which is not so great. Or Melbourne is probably the other place I'd live, but Brisbane is definitely the best city in Australia for sure.
Yeah, thank you. And look, I'll kind of agree. I've lived in all 3 of our major cities, grew up in the one down at the bottom in the cold, and I'm glad I'm not there right now. I love where I live though. So now this is about you. Tell us, Karl, who do you serve and how do you serve them?
Well, for me, it's always a matter of having that really client-centric focused. But it's a 2-parter. So the first part is serving the client to a place that they didn't know was possible. And the second part is the enjoyment and the pure joy that you get in the process of doing that. And I believe as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, my role is to create a version of that experience that is even beyond what the client believed was possible. But some of that comes from me wanting to experience it the way that I would love to experience it. And that kind of mindset for me came a lot from, I guess one of my mentors and someone that I look up to greatly, in the form of Sir Richard Branson. And, going back to the days when he created the Virgin Airlines, it was really about, he was so dissatisfied with the airline experience. He thought, well, how would I want to experience this? And that's how he created the Virgin airline brand. And I guess from a very young age, I was a little bit of a cloud gazer. I used to love sitting there looking up the clouds and dreaming and being a bit of a dreamer. And I think a lot of that comes through in how I create these amazing experiences for clients and creating the environment, not just for the client to experience, but how can we create that for the team so that the team gives that to the client in the best possible way?
That's great. I'm so excited to hear more about how you do this. Obviously, I should tell the listeners, the way I learned about you, Karl, I was introduced by a mutual friend who's in our community, often sits on the podcast, and I found out that you had a business that had a name. What was in the name of that business is 5-star reviews. And so there was an instant alignment there and a spark of interest, like, wow, what is he doing? And I know you're going to take us more into that today, which is super exciting. What do you like doing when you're not busy serving your clients and doing everything you do?
For the listeners, my wife and I actually have 4 children. And we had 4 children under 2. So we had triplets plus 1. So at this point in time, I've got 3 children in year 12 and a wife who's finishing her PhD. So it is just a crazy manic life at the moment on the home front. So when I'm not working or thinking of different ways to surprise and delight clients, it's probably more just battle stations at home. So I'm sure that there'll come a time after this year we'll have free time to kind of enjoy some travel. I'd love to go back to Germany and see my family there. That's a great love of mine. For me, it's my second home. So I'm really looking forward to doing a little bit more travel next year.
Lovely. And have the triplets got plans post university? Post high school?
Yeah, they're all scheduled to go to uni, although one of them was hinting at a gap year, to which we said no. So it's off to university for all 3 of them at some point, I'm sure.
Okay. That'll feel very different for you, I'm sure, when that happens.
Yeah. I don't think they're gonna move out of home. I just think they're gonna be studying at university.
You can always leave, Karl, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You could move out. I'd love to learn a bit more about your journey. So what's brought you to where you are today? So tell us about the journey, whatever that looks like, sounds like, however long it takes. I'd love to know about the journey.
It's really interesting. Sometimes you think, like, how is it I'm here today? What were the decisions? What was the butterfly effect that essentially led me to this point of where I am? And I don't know exactly where it started, but as a young child, I used to love traveling. We used to go back to Europe, every other year to see family over there. And so for me, I can still remember as a child, like, one of the most magical things was flying on a plane. I was a young kid that loved magic, going to the Eka. For those of you who know what the Eka is, it's a big show day here where you can get little show bags that are heavily overpriced and you stand in queues for long periods of time, but that's another story. And, I used to like to buy the magic kits, and was, fascinated with magic card tricks and all of that sort of stuff. So I think at some level, somewhere along the line, there was a love of magic. There was a love of experiences. And I once heard it said to me from a business mentor of mine that your greatest business joy comes at the intersection of your 2 greatest virtues. And for me, my 2 greatest virtues are around experiences and high-end quality products or services. So when I'm playing in that space, I'm at my most happiest. If I'm helping them craft remarkable experiences and it's around beautiful furniture or it's around, jewelry or diamonds or whatever that is, I'm at my most happiest. But I've come to realize that the further extension of that is when I'm working with business owners that are also high caliber, business owners that are passionate about growing their business, about being uniquely different and special. Like that's what really lights me up, is helping others. And I think sometimes when you get to that later end or the second, third, fourth chapter of your life, whatever it is, you really have that desire to help and give back and see their light bulbs lit up. And that's one of the things that I just love doing. But for those of you who know me, for the longest time, I was probably known as and probably still am, known as the diamond guy in Brisbane, because we have a 47-year-old second generation family business that specializes in engagement rings and wedding rings. And sometimes I say we're like Disneyland for adults. It's like the happiest place on earth. No one comes to see me unhappy. Everybody's like just overjoyed, whether they're celebrating an engagement, a wedding, birth of a child. It's just a beautiful job to do. And I guess for me, I can be very creative. I can draw and sketch jewelry. So one of my superpowers is that I can draw any ring that you can imagine in 3D in under 60 seconds. And so a lot of times I'm there sketching and drawing for clients, and just to see the look on their face, that penny drop moment when they see the design coming together is really a beautiful thing. And so I did that for a very long time. Like I said, nearly probably 3 decades. And then this little thing called COVID came along. And the government in Australia came out and banned weddings, which is pretty like devastating when that's pretty much what you do. So during that time, it was around, ironically, Corey, I was actually in Germany in January of 2020 with my family there. And, you know, all the talk on the news was about this COVID thing. And I remember thinking, this is probably just like another SARS. It's another swine flu. It's another something or other that'll blow over in a couple of months. Boy, was that wrong. Coming back into lockdowns and all of that sort of stuff. So we pretty much at that time lost 97% of our revenue for 8 weeks. And the worst part about it was we didn't know when it was going to end. Like when you were in it, you can look back now and go, oh, it ended in 8 weeks or whatever. But at the time, it felt like it was just going to go on forever. So I was at a point where I was like, well, we don't have any clients. I need to go out and find some clients. Where are our clients coming from originally? And that's going to be the place I go to. So I started diving into the data, and I found, looking at our numbers, that in the previous year, we'd had 173 sales, and that sales and not leads, that we'd recorded in our point of sale that had come from our Google reviews. And I thought, isn't that interesting? So I thought I could probably teach other people how to do that. And I started, going to that. And that was one of the things that quickly turned us around and pulled us out of that. But as I kind of went on a bit of a process of discovery, I realized that I just love working with clients that found us because of our Google reviews. They generally made a decision faster, they spent more, and they didn't care about the competition. And I thought, well, who as a business owner wouldn't love that? And so I just started putting it out on Facebook, and I said, look, this is the results we've received. Would anyone else love to know how we did it? And then, lots of people started, filling in the comments. And then, so I just created a program on how to get 5-star reviews. And that's, I guess, how the name of the business came around. It's like, well, what do I call it? And it's kind of like, well, what does it do? And I just, it kind of gets you 5-star reviews. So I just called it that. So the next 2 years has really been about really diving a lot deeper into how I do what I do and why I get the results that I do and others don't. So there's a great saying that says, if you really want to understand a topic or a subject, it's teach it to somebody else. And you get so many clarifications. And even now, like, I love doing sales calls. I love doing mentoring sessions. I've got a big, you probably can't see this, but I've got like a big notebook that I have here. And it's like, whenever I'm in a session, I'm writing stuff down because I get like amazing clarity that just comes out in these sessions. And I'm going to share one at the very end. So if you're listening, make sure you stay all the way through to the end. Which was a really groundbreaking one that only just came out in the last week. So that's what I really love about this too. It's almost like very selfish in my sense, because it's exciting, it's fun, and it's interesting, and I'm learning. Every day I learn something new or a different distinction about whether it's human psychology, whether it's around the way people buy and how the buying patterns of clients have changed over the last few years.
So interesting. And are you working in the diamond business at the moment, or you are doing both?
Well, I mean, as much as we're all protected in this world of Zoom these days, I'm wearing a 3-piece suit for those of you who can't see me today. So I do both. Like I said, for me, working in the diamond shop is just pure joy. And I love, for me, that service, the service DNA, I call it, is something that's really essential, I think, for every business today. And we've had a conversation around this earlier, but one of my wife's and my favorite show was Downton Abbey, and you had the English butlers that were there. And I think English butlers are phenomenal. And they treat service with such pride. And there's a level of sophistication, there's a level of knowledge that you actually have to be a butler. And so it's not really, I never see service in a derogatory sense. I actually see it as something of very noble intent, to be of service, to come from a place of service and to serve is a very noble activity. And I think if you don't really get that, if you don't really see that our role or our job is to come from that without judgment. And that for me is probably the hardest one for most people to kind of really grasp, is to be of service without judgment. Because it's so easy. This client is annoying, or, they were running late, or they're being unreasonable, or whatever that is, whatever the internal voice says. You should never say it out loud, but, it's about making sure that you can be of service without judgment. For me, if you position yourself that way, and if you can teach your teams to do that, that is one of the essential ingredients to making sure that you have a 5 or 6 star business.
You touched on something there that took me back to the days when I was working in 5-star hotels, and just having that sense of service on a personal level. And I know Corey has spent many years in hospitality in his younger days as well, but also as a manager. So we've all had this period of our lives where we've been in service in a physical capacity, right? And you're doing both now. So you're serving your customers still in the diamond shop, and you've got your customers online on Zoom. How is it different? How do you find the difference between one and the other?
They're similar and yet different in the same way. One, I get the significance from seeing the end result directly. And the other one, I get the significance from helping them achieve the goals that they want to achieve. Like I said, having been in business now for nearly 3 decades, I know what it's like to be in the trenches. I know what it's like to kind of go, where's the next sale, or where's the next lead coming from? And nothing makes me happier like a proud parent when my clients message me or text me and say, we're now getting, 3 new clients a week coming in because of our Google reviews. Or I had one client a couple of weeks ago that messaged me and said, I'm anticipating to earn another $600K on top of my normal revenue that's coming purely from my Google reviews. And so when you see that sort of feedback and you see that results, for me, the joy is in helping them then achieve, either they're trying to exit a business or sell it, or whether it just affords them the lifestyle where they can afford to spend time with their kids, or they can afford to homeschool them and be at home and do what they want to do, because then they're not feeling so burdened that they have to, do all this marketing and what's going to work and what's not going to work, and how much money do I have to throw at this, Facebook ads. And I think, look, you know what? I think Zuckerberg has enough money. He doesn't need any more of mine. And I would much rather that clients leverage their reputation to do their marketing for them. And at its core essence, that's what I teach, is reputation marketing. I hate the word reputation management because it feels like it's something that you've got to do, like it's something that you've got to manage. So I don't really like that phrase. I often talk about reputation building, reputation growing, reputation marketing, where you're leveraging your brand story through the eyes and words of your clients. And if you think about what a remarkable business is, a remarkable business has the word remark in it, which is exactly what we're asking our clients to do. I'm asking them to remark on the client experience. And what better way to have your clients tell and be your advocate, your raving fan, your, sales team out there banging the drum for you constantly than you doing it yourself.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. There's a lot in here, and I mean, look, I've been in marketing for a number of years, and it's a lot of the conversations we have in 6 Star is it comes back to this because it's the first thing that businesses need to do once they've suddenly got space, right? Where's the next lead coming from? Oh, I need to market. And there's a lot of, I say, tried and tested or standard ways to do marketing that a lot of people just are getting sick of. They're not credible, not quality. They don't come from a place of authenticity. And then we've got what you're talking about, the reputation marketing, which to me feels like it is far more authentic because it's coming from language that's directly from customers' mouths. A couple of questions, because I'm putting the hat on of the audience, the listeners, who might say, but is that going to be suitable to any kind of business? Because I've got this kind of a business and Karl has a diamond ring shop. So I've got a different kind of business.
Yeah, I always love that one. It's so easy for you. You've got a diamond business. Everybody wants to give you reviews. No, the funny thing is, really, I've just seen it over the last couple of years. It doesn't matter. People often ask me, like, it's a very common question, like, what is a perfect client? What is a perfect referral for you? And I often say it has absolutely nothing to do with the business industry or niche. It has everything to do with the mindset of the business owner. Okay. I've got clients that are doctors, surgeons, vets, podiatrists, lawyers, accountants, electricians. I've had clients that are plumbers. I'm just trying to think who I currently have. I've got a photographer. I've got an event hire company. It really has nothing to do with any of that. If at any point you have a client and that client uses the internet, then you can do reputation marketing. You know, sometimes clients say, oh, that won't work for my business. What, your clients don't use the internet? If your clients are using the internet, they're looking at your reviews. Reputation marketing, you touched on it before. There's a research out there that shows that about 84% of people do not trust conventional marketing these days. And the simple reason is that it's become so spammy. It's become so clickbait. It's so self-serving. Like if you type into Google at the moment, dentist Brisbane, at the top, you'll see some of the paid ads. Then you see the local SEO where the Google reviews are shown. And then below that, you get all of the organic listings, which has all of your, your on-page SEO and that sort of things. I always ask this question, how many people click on the ads at the top? Almost nobody. Why? It's at the top. It's the most prevalent. It's the most fastest. And at the end of the day, it's because on some level, we understand that that person's just paying for our attention. They're not necessarily the best person, the best business. They're not necessarily the one that can help us achieve the answer to our problem or our question. So we skip it. And where do we go? The next one, why does Google put the reputation marketing section second above all of the organic listing? It's because Google knows that people value reviews as much as a recommendation from like a personal referral from a family or friend. So that, and there's so many studies out there, you can Google them around the validity of reviews in terms of influencing buyer behavior. 31% of people said they'd spend more with a business with excellent reviews. People will want to work for a company that's got excellent reviews over one that doesn't, which always makes me laugh when people say, there's no good people out there. Well, unless there was a black plague that I was aware of where everybody died, there's still the same amount of people that are here, It's just that they're not choosing to work for or apply to your company because they've checked out your reviews and you don't really have many good reviews. So the opposite is also true. In the old days, if you pissed off a client or you did something wrong or you dropped the ball, which we're all human, so no one's perfect all of the time, they'd probably be disgruntled for, a week or two and then they'd forget it and move on with their life. These days, businesses do not have that luxury. And that's something I say time and time again. You do not have the luxury of paying lip service to your reviews or to your reputation. Because a client can go on there and leave a 1-star review and it's there forever until they take it down or change it, or you can get it removed, which is very difficult. So you have to make sure now more than ever that we're protecting one of our greatest assets in business, which is our reputation.
It's really fascinating how this is so important. It really is. And like you said, for any business owner today, they really can't pay lip service or ignore their reputation online, because everybody is online. And we know from all the research, if someone comes across you, across your brand, or they hear about you or think about you, guess what they do? They Google you and they want to know, well, what are people saying? Like, there's the words that you can write on a page, and they want to have that initial review. They'll go to your website, your about page, they'll check out your LinkedIn if you've got that. But they also look at the Google reviews if it's a product especially, or, a service-based business, and you want to see how good is that service. It was interesting because I had to speak to a lawyer recently, and this lawyer I have used before in the past, and it's been about 8 years. And they've moved offices, and the phone number I had that I tried to ring was wrong. So I had to look them up online and did all that. And funnily enough, not only have they not got a website, so it was just a page with just a bit of content and then a phone number. That is it. That hasn't changed since I used them before. But then when I did the Google thing, there was some poor reviews on there. And I thought, wow, that's really fascinating. They are not paying any attention to their online presence whatsoever. And yet her business has grown. There's, a number of, 10, 15 staff, a few lawyers, and they're doing well. But it's, I was fascinated by it. I was like, wow, I'd love to get into her mind and just ask, do you care about this? Because this is important. This is how you continue to grow your business.
Yeah, the biggest thing for a lot of people in today's world is the what I call the awareness reality gap. They're just not aware, and once you flag it, it's one of those things you can't unsee it. Once you're made aware of it, it's very hard to unsee it. So, but the problem is that we kind of like trudge through, and we get to working in the business rather than working on the business. And, focusing on building your online reputation is about working on the business, being a practitioner, which is what a lot of people in business are, because they're technically great at what they do. And I often believe that as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we're in business for 3 reasons. The first reason is, let's be honest, it's about providing for our families and earning an income. Otherwise, you really wouldn't do it. The second one is about providing an amazing end result to a client. Something that gives you joy and gives the client joy. Like you're good at being a lawyer, and you get great results for your clients, because at the end of the day, if you weren't getting any results, it'd be pretty unfulfilling. And the third reason I believe that we're all in business is that at some level, we want to make a bigger impact in the world. Now, whether that's your immediate world, whether that's your community, whether it's a bigger mission, I think having that third part is something that's incredibly important. And, as time goes on and, the rise of AI and all of that sort of stuff goes on, I think it's only going to become more important. For us, what we do is that for every Google review we help our clients get, we donate 1 day of education to a young woman in the Philippines so that they can pull themselves and their families out of poverty. Because we know, and the research shows this, is that when you look after women in developing countries, that they look after the whole community. They look after the mother, the father, the sister, the brother, the uncle, the husband, the kids, everybody. So for us, that's part of our plan. And we call it the 10,000 Smiles campaign. And the concept there is that we think that when we show a business owner how to create a remarkable client experience for their client, something beautiful happens to their face. They smile because they're happy, right? And we thought, wouldn't it be really cool if the smile didn't end there? What if we could make that smile happen somewhere else in the world? And so by doing this and giving 1 day of education to a young woman, she's now smiling. So the mission is 10,000 smiles, 10,000 Google reviews, and 10,000 days of education for young women in need. And that's, for me, that's part of closing that loop around making a bigger impact in the world. And for me, it's that there's a great concept called procession. I don't know whether you've heard of precession, but it's all about what I do here today could have a positive impact somewhere in the world that I'll never know. What if one of the young girls that we help and sponsor and support goes on to become a president, or does something else, becomes a nurse and goes on to save 1,000 more babies or something like that? So for me, that's one of the things that really inspires me to link every action that we do to some good and positivity in the world.
God, I really love what you say, because it speaks of my heart to my heart. The reputation thing is actually so elementary, important, and so simple, right? It's what is reputation? Reputation requires uniqueness, so you are stand out of the crowd. Uniqueness comes with authenticity, and authenticity requires motivation, passion for something. Yeah, to be good, as you just said, you are perfect in what you do, always with this customer-centric view. And what would you say is the biggest challenges, apart from not being aware of what is needed to have the customer's needs and his best interest in mind? What is the biggest challenge to get people to tap into their genius and authenticity?
The biggest challenge or roadblock for most people comes from fear. What if a client goes on and leaves a bad review? Because this concept of reputation marketing can accelerate or amplify what it is that you are. And if you're not remarkable, it can amplify that. So the biggest thing is probably fear. The second thing is starting, and that's kind of linked to fear, but everything can be a little bit daunting until you've done it. In the beginning, if you were learning to drive a manual car, there was a clutch, there was an indicator, there was a mirror, steering wheel, pedals, all of that sort of stuff. And if you're used to driving a car, now it's just one thing. And so what I teach people to do is it's just one thing, even though it's made up of a number of components. It's just one thing. And you said it before, it's simple, but it's not always easy. And it's a matter of teaching them that it's just really one thing that they have to do. But just like investing in financial world, it's time in the market, not timing the market, that is the difference. So just starting and becoming in motion, even in the beginning, if you're just doing one review a month, well, that's better than none. And one review a fortnight is better than one a month. Then one a week is better than one a fortnight. But to just start and be in motion for actually achieving it. So I find that once people start to do it, it becomes more part of who they are. There's a company that I'm currently working with. Their name is Ocular in New Zealand. They've got 4 locations. And the wonderful thing is now over a period of 3, 4, 5 months, they're starting to get several reviews every single week now, where in the beginning it was, 1 or 2 a month. Now they're getting several a week. But there's an interesting byproduct. And the byproduct is that when you put service standard, when you put delivering exceptional experiences to clients at the forefront of an everyday conversation, as forefront of the culture of how we do what we do, the whole team lifts, because they can see, Johnny over there getting a 5-star review. They can see Sarah over there getting a 5-star review. Well, I want one too. So I'm going to have to raise my service standard even more. And it's like that great saying is that, a rising tide brings up all boats. And what I've seen time and time again in some of the businesses that I work with is that there is a ripple effect that happens. Yes, reputation marketing is about getting more leads, and it will absolutely do that for your business. But it'll make it a better place to work. People will have more joy. And we know that when people have more joy and they're more effective and productive in their work, they produce more. So sometimes it's the old iceberg analogy, which is if you think what I do is just 5-star reviews, then you've really missed the point. Below the waterline, there are so many other things. It's about remarkable client experiences. It's about engaged team. It's about, so many other things that makes a business. And below that, even further, is all about having a world-class reputation. You can truly be world-class if you're a local fish and chip shop down at, or up at Redcliffe or something like that. It's a mindset. It's not a budgeting question. It's not, well, I don't have the marketing budget of the Ritz-Carlton, so I can't be world-class. No, you absolutely can. But you have to have the right mindset that believes that not only is it achievable, but that you can do it and that ultimately it'll be worth it for your business.
I love that. The iceberg applies across every element of our lives, right? And especially in business. And effectively we're talking about the mindset of the business owner who needs to adopt and understand this. And so they only see that little bit at the top. And once they start, like you said, at that first step, then they get to see and understand the rest. It always starts with the first step. Always, all change. I'm fascinated to know, Karl, what new or surprising insights you've learned since you began this, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago?
Oh, well, there's so many of those, which is why I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book to share. Because, and ultimately, I'd love to, at some point, it's in the plans to do a podcast and all of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, and that's what I said to you. I'm constantly writing notes about things that I'm learning, along the way. And it just reaffirms to me now, every day that what I'm doing is the area that's probably needed the most. I'd love to say that in our amazing country that we have amazing service standards. No, we don't. The reality is that most people think that what they're doing is great service, and all they're doing is giving the client what they paid for. It's like so many times I'll talk to a client and say, well, what are you doing that's remarkable for the client? Well, the client did this and I gave them that. And I go, well, that's what they were paying you for. That's not remarkable. You've just delivered exactly what the client paid you for. If you're a lawyer and you're paying to have a shareholders agreement written up, and as a lawyer, you write up an amazing shareholding agreement, that's what the client paid you for. There's nothing remarkable or exceptional about that. Yes, you did it to a high standard, but that's not above and beyond for the client. The client doesn't expect you to do a substandard result. It's the part that always gets me. It's like, I did my job really well. It's like, well, that's what the client was expecting. The client is not expecting average or below average when you give it to them. So it's this concept that I always teach around surprise and delight. What are the things in the client journey experience that go far beyond what the client thought was possible? And the reality is sometimes that's the hardest thing for business owners to grasp. And there are some scarcity thoughts around, well, how much is that going to cost? And so there's another mindset shift that we have to do there. But the question I sometimes ask them as a posing question is, how much of your total revenue, gross profit, or net profit, you choose, I don't care, are you dedicating to surprise and delight elements in the client journey experience? Now, most people say nothing, as in zero. Some might say 1 or 2%. And I say to them, well, what would it look like if we made that 8% or 10%? What would that look like? And when they start to think about it, they go, wow, imagine all the stuff I could do if I was dedicating that amount of money to surprise and delight elements and making this client experience where, and it's one of the concepts that I teach in my larger program, which I call the magical moments of truth. And the magical moments of truth are really the profound impacts that you can have on a client that make the idea of going somewhere else unthinkable. Now, when you approach that from a business philosophy, it's so different to the client came in and asked for X and I gave them X, even if it was at a high standard. But are most businesses thinking that way? No. So it's a matter of stretching their thinking. I love pushing people outside of their comfort zone. Maybe that came from the 10 years I spent in the military as an artillery captain. I don't know. But I do love pushing people outside of their comfort zone. Because ultimately I do it because I know that once they go through that discomfort, they come out the other side with a business that can be truly remarkable and that can get amazing 5-star reviews, that can provide them with the income, the revenue, the money, whatever that is for them, so that they can do the things in their life that bring them the most joy.
I mean, and that's what it's about, right? The thing you said right at the end, what brings them joy. We're not doing this to, like, there are a number of reasons, like you said, the 3 reasons people go into business. And if I ask Ben, what do you think most people really, really want? What they really want, even though they don't say it, they just want to feel the joy and the peace inside, right? And that actually comes through all of these things. So these are pathways to achieving that ultimate place of peace and joy. That's what I believe. When you're in service to others, when you're coming from that aligned place where you're fulfilling your mission, that's going to give you that peace and joy and the money, of course. But most people seek out the money thinking that's going to bring them the peace and joy only. But I think it's the other way around, or it's a blend of both. Have you made any changes to the strategies in the diamond shop since starting the 5-star reviews business?
No, I wouldn't say that I've made any changes because I was already doing that. It was that unconscious competence. Like I was already doing it. It was already working. I just hadn't connected all the dots. And so what the last couple of years has really been about is connecting the dots. Like I said, teaching people how to do it means that I had to get really clear on the exact steps and the order. It's like baking a cake. If you put the flour in and you do the water and you do all that stuff, and at the very end you add the eggs when the eggs should have been added, and it doesn't taste the same. So it's about understanding not only the essential components that you need to build a stellar 5-star Google review portfolio, but it's understanding the order in which they have to appear. And very often if I'm with a client and they're talking about it, I can very easily see why they're not achieving the results. And on average, I would say in the beginning, most clients are probably 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 get converted into a Google review. So, they ask 20 people and they're lucky if they convert 1. And the simple answer is that they just need a better system. If you're not realistically converting 5 out of 10 clients into a Google review, then the issue is probably not about your service or your quality or your product. It's just that you need a better system. So it's about teaching them the system, the steps, the processes, the procedures, the languaging, all of those sort of things to create a process where it just happens effortlessly. If you ever see me asking for a Google review in the diamond shop, I'm like a little kid in a candy store. I love it. It's great. I mean, who doesn't like to hear, hey, you did an amazing job. I loved how you did this, this, and that. Hey, it was so amazing. I can't wait, and all that sort of stuff. So for me, it's like I love reading these kind of virtual pats on the back that you get in the form of a Google review. And my business account is linked to a lot of my clients that I help, and I'm constantly dinged throughout the day for their amazing Google reviews. And I love reading them. And I get just as much joy out of reading my clients' 5-star reviews as I do out of reading my own. So for me, it feels just good. It feels good to receive a review. And the research and the psychology shows that your clients actually feel good when they write one. So why wouldn't you ask? And there's a whole lot of reasons why people don't ask. But yeah, so I haven't really changed anything. I'm a naturally curious person. So I'm always tinkering. I'm always exploring. I'm always testing and measuring. Like, how can I get more out of this? How can I squeeze a little bit more of the juice out of it? How can I make it more efficient, more effective? That's probably the German in me, Corey. It's like, how can I make this more effective? How can I get a better result? and make it more predictable every single time. So I'm just tinkering with it, but I'm not really changing the big blocks, so to speak. But I'm always thinking about other ways about how I can make it more remarkable, or what is another, surprise and delight touch point that you can incorporate. The interesting business that gets this really well is casinos. Casinos get surprise and delight better than anybody. If you ever sat at one of those pokie machines and mindlessly pressed a button over and over and over again like a monkey, there's a reason why the people do that. And it's a concept that's called intermittent rewarding. And the reason that it's called intermittent rewarding is we don't know when the reward is coming or how big it will be. So we sit there in anticipation of, is the next spin going to be the best one? Or am I going to double it up or all of that sort of stuff? So, I try and teach people how to be more like a casino, because if you can be more like a casino, like if only we could make as much money as a casino. But I guarantee you that if you double down on the client journey experience, not only will you get a ton more 5-star Google reviews, you'll probably get a ton more word of mouth referrals. You'll get more organic business that will just find its way. You will find opportunities open for you that you don't know why or how they happened. They just did. So like I said, for me, the space is just really endless, but for the right business owner. So we sometimes say, like, we're for every business, just not every business owner.
This is so amazing. I mean, is there any limitation in your mindset? I would say no.
Yes, there is one limitation. I won't work with a business that's not an ethical business doing the right thing for their clients. And I have been asked, but if I don't feel that at your core essence you want to grow your business and that you provide a really valuable service and you're coming at it from the right ethics, then I won't take you on as a client, So if you were, and I say this with a preface of an apology to the used car dealers out there, because I know that a lot of you, most of you, are all very ethical. But if you were an unethical car dealer and you wanted to use these Jedi mind tricks to get lots of Google reviews that didn't actually represent what your business was like, then that would be a limitation for me. The unfortunate thing about that, what most people don't realize, is that it's a very short-term strategy if you approach it that way. Because think about this. Imagine now you're let's say an unethical or a business that's not really aiming to deliver exceptional value to your clients. And let's say I help you get 50 or 100 Google reviews. And let's say then you start to attract new clients that come into your business. And then when they get there, they find out, oh my God, the reviews do not match the experience. It actually works out worse for you because they're really going to go on and leave bad reviews. So it's actually very counterproductive. The very first step in the 7 elements that I teach people on how to get an amazing Google review portfolio is that you have to have a great product or service. That's the absolute first step. If you don't get a tick in the box there's no point going any further. But that, I would say, is the only limitation.
Thank you, Karl. I've got a question. You mentioned just a minute ago that it works for every business, but just not for every business owner. You want to just unpack that a little bit? Like, who's the business owner that it's not for?
So that goes back again to the mindset of the business owner that we spoke about at the beginning. The business owners that really just get, and I've had business owners where they've put on like 126 5-star Google reviews in 6 weeks. The business owners that don't have the right mindset are the ones that don't see it as a priority in their business. They don't. It's a nice to have, not a need to have. And I would argue at this point in time, it's a need to have for every business. Sometimes people will say to me, "Oh no, that's okay. I'm busy enough right now." That's great. Not always going to be busy enough. And the best time to leverage your Google reviews is when you are busy, because you have the client volume and the load to turn those testimonials into SEO-powered Google reviews. So that's the time you want to work on it. But if you don't see it as something that's of importance, if you don't see the reputation of your business as potentially the most valuable asset of your business, then it will never work, because it'll be, trying to teach you to do things that you don't really see as important. So I would say it comes down for me, the people that either, that see this working on their reputation as a must, and that this could be their most valuable asset, or that, sometimes if they're too busy, and you've probably seen this many times, the busy business owner that's always working on the urgent and important sector. Where are the fires that I need to put out? If you're a business that's constantly in putting out fire mode, it's probably not a great fit for you. And, until you can get out of that mindset where I need to work on the important, but not urgent.
Karl, what is your superpower?
I think my superpower is perspective. Perspective is one of those amazing things that you can never have from the position you're standing. It always has to come from somewhere else. So what I do for my clients is I bring a fresh perspective, ironically through the lens of a high-end jewelry store. There are 3 rules that I ask myself when I'm helping a client, like really revolutionize their client journey experience. The first one is, what would I do if there was no itty bitty shitty committee sitting on my shoulder telling me that it won't work? That internal voice you saying, oh, you look stupid if you do that, or what will the neighbors think, or what will the competitor think? The second question I ask myself is, what would you do if there were no rules? Now, let me preface that. I'm not saying go out there and break the law, but there are lots of things out there where we take so many things as for granted, and this is the way it's always been done. We're so preconditioned to following these laws or these rules, or, you can't do it in that order, So what would you do if there were no rules? And the third one I ask is, what would Richard Branson do? Because if you can come up with the idea of what Richard Branson would do, you can always scale it back. So if Richard Branson would use, let's say, Dom Perignon, not that I know that he does that or not, but I'm just saying if he did, you could start with a nice Prosecco. But the concept of how you integrate that into the client journey experience is the same. So it's easier for me to scale someone back than ratchet up their thinking. So it's a bit, I forgot what the question is. I went on a tangent. What was the question again around,
your superpower?
Superpower. Okay. So it's the perspective, right? Yeah. So my ability to look at someone's client journey experience, whether they're a surgeon, whether they're a vet, whether they're an accountant, is to give them a fresh perspective of how remarkable their client experience could be, because they themselves can't see it, because they've been so classically conditioned or trained to do things this way, sit down, do your work, go home and do all that sort of stuff. So that's what I think is that ability to kind of, like, to give you an example. I was presenting at an event recently for a company that does like pools, like they install all cast pools, and they basically within 48 hours they can put a pool in your backyard, which I think is fascinating. So day 1 they come in, dig a hole. Day 2 the concrete thing just goes and slots in. And I was talking to them about like the surprise and delight, and said, what would you do if you had to do these touch points in the client journey experience? And someone in the room said, well, look, we'd give them, if we knew that they had kids, we would give them like some pool toys, to have in the pool. I thought, yeah, that's not bad. I said, but the problem is it's a $5 Bunnings trip. Is it really remarkable? No. Are they going to see it every day? Probably not. What if you gave them some beautiful towels, and not like just the big W towels, like I'm talking like Sheridan sheet like towels, like the really fluffy kind or whatever. And what if you got embroidered on the bottom of the towel the client's name? Now, every day the client uses that towel and sees their name embroidered on the bottom of the towel, they will think of your business. You don't need to put your logo. And I hate it when people do that. No one needs another branded power pack, USB card, or any of that crap. Create things that are usable in the client's life and personalize it for them. And they will always remember you when they use it. So the fresh perspective, to show business owners how remarkable their client journey experience could be, is what I think is my superpower.
That's a great superpower, Karl. And I couldn't agree more about not needing any more silly branded, gadgetry. We've got so much of it. And I kind of stumbled into the realization of that many years ago when I was getting a lot of stuff. And then when I developed my own program that was high end and I knew I needed to start, doing these little surprise and delight things, all I could think about was them, and I just did that even though it was different to what seemed to be the standard approach. So, yeah, very interesting. So I was doing it unconsciously, organically. And you've just expanded on that really, really beautifully as part of your insights and perspective and what you teach your clients. So cool. I love what you do, Karl. And I'm sure your clients do as well. Yeah. Love your energy. And I love everything that you do. Now, this is 6-Star Podcast. So I'm keen to understand from your perspective, what does 6-star mean to you?
Yeah, it's funny. It's like, well, why did we stop at 5? Why would you stop at 6? Well, where's the line, I guess? What comes after 6? Is it a 7-star, 10-star? Are we at 12-star? I think in the very beginning, focusing on 5-star reviews, if I go back even as far as probably 8 to 10 years ago when I started this strategy at some level that I was very unconscious about. What it was I realized that telling my team to go out there and give a great experience meant different things to different people. My definition of a great experience and what I could do for my clients might be very different to yours. The way that I achieve that might be very different to yours. In the military, we have a concept called commander's intent. And what that means is the commander says, take the hill. I don't care whether you go up the middle, the left, or the right. The ultimate objective is to take the hill. You get to the end result however you want to do it. And so what I did in the early days was, instead of telling my team to go out there and give a great experience, what I told them to do was to go out there and give a 5-star Google experience, because it became very trackable and measurable as to whether the end result was achieved or not. So when I think about what does a 6-star experience mean to me, is I would say that it is everything that a 5-star experience is, with the added caveat of consistency. Because if you go and get a haircut, and for the guys that are probably listening to this, if you go to a standard haircut, they might do a neck shave, they might do a hot face towel, they might give you a beer or something like that. And imagine the first time you go, they do everything and you think, this is amazing, I'm going to tell everybody. Then the next time they forget to give you the beer. The next time you go, they give you the beer, but they forget the hot face towel. The next time they don't do the next shave. Like even though it may have been a 5-star experience, they're not necessarily a 6-star business. And so it is the consistency of delivering that 5-star experience or 6-star experience every single day. It should be, so that everybody gets the same experience, whether the first client of the day, whether they're the last client, whether it's at, 5 minutes before 5 on Christmas Eve. It doesn't matter. Like that to me is what a 6-star business embodies, is that ability to deliver that exceptional service consistently every single time, no matter what, to everybody, regardless of how they look, whether they walk in thongs whether they, are dressed in a 3-piece suit. That's for me what a 6-star business is.
Nice. And that consistency obviously comes from the person who's delivering it, or the people.
And the business owner's service
and the
vision.
business owners, and their ability to have infused that vision and empowered the team to deliver that. Nice. I wonder what you were going to say. It's always interesting, asking that question, because everyone's got a different perspective on it, which is perfect, and they're all right. Everyone's, view of that is perfect for them. And I love to just tap into that, which is great. Corey, what have you got for Karl now? You've been soaking this all in and nodding, laughing, writing things down.
I can't say much except that I love his unconditional dedication to client experience and the combination of his curiosity, the passion, and the inspiration, the motivation. And it always strikes me how people are not seeing, or how difficult it is for them to step into the shoes of others, to take it from their perspective, because that's what we all do when we go somewhere. We always expect the best outcome result for us, right? How is it so difficult for others to just remind themselves? And that always strikes me. And obviously that gives you an enormous opportunity to touch base with hundreds of people around the world, in addition to your jewellery job. And probably the final question is, how have you, since you love to stretch your clients to get beyond their conditioned framework and custom zone, how have you had to stretch yourself when getting into this coaching, mentoring, provocation? How do you say that? The promotion? What was the word we were looking for last time? Berufung in German. It's not a business. It's actually an inner calling. Yeah, exactly. It's an inner calling. Yeah. So how did you have to stretch yourself? What has been challenging for you in this mentoring coaching role, where you add on new skills, new information, whatever it is?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing around that was, for years, people have been probably tapping me on the shoulder and saying, you probably have more value to give, than just the jewelry stuff. And it's hard, like when you're in a business that's, very successful, very well known, and you're enjoying what you're doing, to step out of that, that comfort zone that we kind of get into. So I'd like to say that it was purely by design and I did it. But the reality is it was really COVID. So COVID really kicked my butt into gear, and they say, what is it? Like, necessity is sometimes the mother of all inventions. So, it was the necessity of having to do that pushed me outside of my comfort zone. But the ability then to embrace that and to come up with that kind of out of the box thinking to go, well, what is the next level? And I think, at some level, that's one of the things that gives me the greatest joy of where I am right now, is that nothing annoys me more than people who speak from a theoretical understanding, never having achieved the end result that they're teaching. I go to business breakfast sometimes and you see someone stand up and they're spruiking their social media marketing services and their own page has 26 likes on it. And I go, well, if you can't do it for yourself, how is it you're proclaiming that you can teach other people around it? So for me, Xennox now has, I think I checked it this morning, 1,057 5-star Google reviews for what we do. And they're of that level where they've got digital photos, they've got, keywords, all of that sort of stuff. So I'm always wanting to make it better. And for me, when we talked about the business mindset, for me, it's always about, I have that mindset where I want to be the best. Like, being average is not part of my DNA or makeup. I don't want to be in the masses in the middle ground, because that's a very crowded market. Being outstanding means to stand out from the crowd and to be exceptional. So that's always framework in my mind. So, growing the business and doing that, but even the 5-star business now, like, just as a matter of curiosity, I thought, well, could I create a lot of Google reviews for a business that's still very, very small and essentially really still in startup? 5-star reviews now has over 140 5-star Google reviews. So I've proven over and over again that I can deliver and do it. There's a framework. There's an art and science to it, yes, but there's a framework that's repeatable, replicable, transferable, and able to do in many different niches. So for me, from an ethical point of view, it's one of the things that I really enjoy about what I do is that I'm speaking always from a position of having done it myself. And not only done it myself, but done it for a variety of businesses across so many different industries that I can really say it doesn't matter what industry or niche, I can show you how to make it work.
That's wonderful. That's awesome, Karl. And we'll have your links and everything below in the show notes so people can know how to get in touch with you, of course. Karl, what's next for you? What do you see the future of Karl Schwantes and what do you want to achieve? What's your vision?
Well, Corey, I like the way she actually put the German slant on it there. Most Australians will say Schwantes, like Qantas. But in Germany, we would say Schwantes. So you did really well there. So good. Well done. For me, the next evolution is really about I'm creating online training programs so that people can actually consume the information on demand in the comfort of their home at a time that suits them, in small, bite-sized 2 to 3 minute videos, which just walk them through all of the success frameworks that we've got, how to do it. Because I want to help more people. I also want to, do a lot more with bigger business that have that sort of management maturity, that they're established, that they can take on and they can implement what I see. But I also want to help a lot of the startups, the small businesses, because this whole reputation piece is really a David and Goliath story at its essence. The little guys can totally punch above their weight if they understand what they need to do. As a new business, like I said, I've shown it can do it. Even as a new business with not many clients, it can still have over 140 Google reviews. Now, all those reviews have been obtained ethically, correctly, never paid for, which I always advocate against. But they come from experiences or times when I've delivered value to somebody who's been grateful for that. So there's that piece around it. I've got podcast books, all sorts of things like that to come out that I'm working on. My brain is a very scary place up there. There's so many ideas. There's never any shortage of ideas. But I said at the beginning, I wanted to leave you kind of with another insight that came to me just in the last week, which is why I really it's almost a selfish endeavor. I get as much out of this sometimes as I feel like I'm giving to the clients that I serve. And the conversation that I had with this client was around and they were pushing back a little bit, which I quite like, around whether this strategy would work for their business. Because they have a TV antenna business. And I was talking to them about it and they were saying, well, we do this, this, and this. And the technicians, like, they're just so busy doing all of this, that they feel like they've asked the client to do enough that they don't want to ask for the Google review. And I said to him, do you think that they've done a good job for the client? He goes, absolutely, great job. I said, do you think it's worth them getting paid? He said, absolutely. I said, well, if you think it's worthy enough to be paid, then you should be worthy enough to be reviewed. If you're worth enough to get paid, you're worth enough to get reviewed or to receive a 5-star review. So it's this attachment in the psychology. Funny fact, I actually did an undergrad degree in psychology. So sometimes I'm fascinated by the psychology element, but it's a sense of self-worth. I'm worthy enough to receive a 5-star review.
Thank you for that. Comes back to the mindset, the belief. And like you said, self-worth is so important. And to me, it would be one of the biggest barrier for people that are listening to this thinking, oh, I haven't done it properly or much, or I've heard everything Karl has said and I believe it and I agree. And now I'm really inspired, but oh my God, I'm still a little bit nervous about going out and asking.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
what are you worth?
Well, that, and guess what? I have multiple business coaches and multiple business mentors. And the easiest way to achieve a replicable result is to go out and find somebody who's already done it. You know, you could probably work it out. Might take you 5 or 10 years. Or you can find someone that's made all the mistakes, you know, done everything wrong, worked out the best, fastest, most efficient way to do it, and get them to teach you how to do it. But, you know, there's another great book that I've just recently finished reading from Dan Martell, which is all about buy back your time. You know, and that's essentially what it is. It's like find a coach or mentor, whether it's me or somebody else out there in your community that's achieved the result that you want to achieve, and get them to teach you how they did it.
Brilliant. That's exactly it. Yeah. It's not hard. It's just taking that first step, going back to what we said at the beginning.
You do have to be dedicated. Like I said, it's not, even though I made a joke about being a Jedi mind trick, you know, there are things that you have to be, like, if you look at the word of discipline, it's all about being a disciple of the work that you're doing. And so you do have to be, and that's the part we were talking before about consistency. And it is something, you know, it's simple, just not easy. So yes, I could just tell you, here are the 10 steps. It doesn't mean that you're going to do them consistently every single time. But if you're in motion, if you're dedicated, if you're disciplined enough to create that because you have a vision for what your company could be like and how amazing it really could be, then it's definitely achievable. I've really not found anybody that it's not achievable for if they are dedicated, which goes back to we're for every business, just not every business owner, to get them into that mindset.
Yeah. And that's it. That's the bottom line. Wonderful. Karl, thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us today. I absolutely loved it. Corey?
Vielen lieben Dank, Karl. Es war ein außerordentliches Vergnügen.
Bitteschön.
Ein außerordentliches Vergnügen.
I knew the German was going to come out, right?
Es war wunderbar für mich auch.
Sehr schön.
Thank you. Vielen Dank. And I look forward to speaking to you very soon, Karl.
All right. Bye. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.